Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
That's some newer Iron Maiden right here on the Classic Metal Show from the Brave New World release. That is the title track. And talking about the Brave New World, Chris, you know those folks over there in jolly old England, they set out on a boat looking for the Brave New World. And one of the guys who's brave, and he's coming into our world for a second time, is our good friend, author Joel McIver. Welcome back to the Classic Metal Show there, Joel.
Thank you very much for having me on, and I love the way you made that link there with the sort of people crossing the ocean and then me forging a second kind of invasion, you know, if you will. I like that. That was neatly done.
Well, I'm a scholarly kind of guy, and you know, I'm a history buff as well. So and I'm no fucking dummy either.
Well, you guys have only got like 200 years of history, haven't you? It's easy. You can do it in a semester.
Right, exactly. Well, Joel, you're back here on the Classic Metal Show because once again you've penned another book. You pump these books out quicker than some trailer park trash pumps out babies.
Yeah, and actually the quality is similar, you know. But, the reason I'm really back on the show, I suspect, is for you guys to pound me for the choices that I've made in my new book, The 100 Greatest Metal Guitarists. Am I right?
Oh, you are absolutely correct on some of that, sir.
Well, I'm ready.
All right, good. Well, the as you said, the name of the book is called The 100 Greatest Metal Guitarists, and Neely and I have we've gone through the list. We've both agreed with you that we will not say who is ranked where. If people want to find out where they're ranked, we'll let them buy the book. That being said, though, your list is odd.
Really? Well, that's a kinder word than a lot of people have used. Please go on.
I'll tell you exactly why I find it odd. While I agree with a lot of these guys that are on this list, and you know, a lot of it is obviously outside of the realm of quote unquote classic metal, a lot of death metal guys, a lot of extreme guys, which is cool. I honestly think that you kept in a lot of guys that have not done enough to actually earn their place on the top 100 of all time.
It's absolutely a point of view. Please go on.
Examples, the guys from Dragon Force.
Yeah.
What have these guys done? I mean, I admit they can play, but they haven't proven anything.
I'm not sure what the difference is there. They've shown they can play.
But would you put them in the top 100 ever?
I have done. No, I tell you what, right?
Okay.
I'm not really into Dragon Force, you know. I think the music is a little bit soft. It's not really my cup of tea. But you know what? If you break down the technical stuff that those guys bring to the music, all right, and also the fact that they're doing something which is genuinely new, right? The idea of extreme power metal, as they call themselves, is completely valid in this case. Although, like I said, it's not my cup of tea. You add up those facts, and I think they're absolutely worth entry into this list. It's as simple as that. I'll tell you, I should clarify that, you know, I haven't just said, right, these guys are, you know, technically speaking, these guys are the best 100. What I've said is that although technique is crucial, what's important is for these people to have some new ideas, which I think I made quite clear into the introduction. New ideas, pioneering sort of songwriting, things that are different, things that are new, things that are clever, and whatever you say about Dragon Force, you haven't heard anything like Dragon Force before, right? And they're utterly incredible musicians, and to me, get them in. I think they're absolutely worth it going into the top 100. I think I put Herman Lee at a reasonably high position in the list as well.
I
think it's a totally arguable point. I think it's a position that could be stood behind. So
sure.
Bring it on.
All right. How about some of these guys that just cannot play, and you even acknowledge that they can't play? Max Cavalera, not a good player.
No, but he's a great rhythm player. All I said was that he can't play lead, right? He admits himself he's not a lead guitarist. His rhythm chops are amazing. You go back to those early Sepultura and mid-period Sepultura records, and you try replicating with the exact same picking hand precision that he does some of those rhythm chops. They are unbelievable, all right? The reason he can't play lead, so that's why he's only in, I don't know, he's like number 80 or something. He's quite low down the list. He's in it for his rhythm chops alone.
But I don't know, man. I've seen Sepultura, I've seen Soulfly. The guy I don't know, man. To me, he's surrounded himself with great players, which has maybe made him seem better. Because obviously Andreas Kisser and Mark Rizzo are both phenomenal players.
They're virtuoso players, yeah.
And I think that's what makes him a standout guy.
Well, no, I would disagree, and I'd go back to the point. I mean, he's delivering those rhythm tracks on Beneath the Remains of Horizon, Schizophrenia, and those albums, yeah. He's doing that. You know, there aren't too many guys who can deliver rhythm chops like that. The Slayer guys, James Hetfield, obviously. That's why he's in there, and the reason why he's... No, I don't think you can argue with that. I mean, he's just a fucking amazing rhythm guitarist. He can't play lead guitar for Toffee, but to me, that, you know, he's a pioneer dude in his field.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, but I agree that he's maybe a pioneer, but not necessarily for playing as much as for what they brought as a musical entity to metal.
Look, do you play the guitar?
A little bit.
Right. You know about a very, very tight tremolo picking and rhythm picking, right, with your picking hand.
Oh, sure.
I tell you, man, it takes a machine to replicate that stuff. Any of the early stuff. I mean, you know what? If you've seen Soulfly lately, or if you saw Sepultura in their later years with Max, like so many other bands, Metallica is a good example. They did an awful lot of sort of slushy, strummy kind of playing. They didn't bother with the very, very precise, crunchy downstrokes that they did in the early years, right? So if you've seen Max play at any time from about probably 95 till now, it's really not that impressive rhythm-wise. But if you were lucky enough to catch him before that, and even better in the late 80s, when Sepultura were at their most extreme, the rhythm chops were just fantastic, and I was always blown away by that. So that's why I put it in the book. But I understand that it's controversial to put someone in who just can't play lead guitar. I totally get that, but that's part of the fun as well,
Sure.
Well, Joel, looking over this list of guitarists that you put together for your new book, to me, as a novice, that it looks like a real daunting task to include as many, 100 guitarists when you think about it. That's a lot of people. But my question is how do you go through all the guitarists that you've mentioned in this list and include some and not include others? Like, I understand people like, say, Eddie Van Halen or a George Lynch is not included in this because you don't consider them quote-unquote metal players. Yet at the same time, you include somebody who basically their claim to fame is prancing on stage like Yannick Gers. And people like that, or you include the Shanker brothers who basically play a blues style guitar much like an Eddie Van Halen, or even in George Lynch, but yet they're included in the list, or a Chris DeGarmo of Queensryche. So how do you distinguish metal guitarist, not metal guitarist?
Great question. And now this is where the book will be most controversial. I wrote this book because there was a certain magazine in your country, which we won't name, which published a list of the so-called 100 greatest metal guitarists a few years back. And it included people like Kurt Cobain, Pete Townsend, Neil Young, all these ridiculous names who are clearly not metal by any stretch of the imagination, right? They played a distorted riff, for sure. They weren't metal guitarists. And I was kind of pissed off by this, and I wrote this book, and I thought, right, in this book we're going to have metal and only metal, all right? So don't get me wrong, I love the work. I repeat, I love the work of Eddie Van Halen, Yngwie Malmsteen, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, Randy Rhoads, Slash, Angus Young, Richie Blackmore, Jimmy Page, all those guys. But to me, they're not metal, they're hard rock. Excellent hard rock, all right? And we could talk about the differences between hard rock and heavy metal, but I think we instinctually know what they are, do we not? So Eddie Van Halen isn't in there for that reason, although he's just an awesome god of the guitar, but by anybody's standards. Okay, with the Shankers, I do understand that there's a little bit of overlap there between hard rock and heavy metal, and I had to sit down and I had to say to myself, God, man, the Shankers, should they go in? So much of the Scorp's work has been hard rock, and yet there's been metal touches there. And you know what swung it for me was interviewing all these people. You'll notice in the book that most of the guitarists chuck in a little paragraph of interview for for the book, specifically for the book, on their heroes. And so many of them came out with the Schenkers as these influences. And all these guitarists were saying to me, yeah, you know, heavy metal, Rudolph, heavy metal, Michael, not hard rock, talking about them in heavy metal terms. But in the end, I just had to say, look, everybody regards the Schenkers as metal. I know that they've had non-metal moments in their catalogue. And then you look at their technical stuff, which, okay, it's bluesy, you're absolutely right there, and it's from a lot of it is from the 70s and 80s, so it seems a little bit outdated now. But when it all added up, and all those things stacked up, and I thought, do we put the Schenkers in or do we not put them in? I had to put them in. And it's going to be controversial, and I'm going to get so much shit for it, but that's cool. It's all right. It's all about, if this book can get people talking and thinking about, well, what's heavy metal, what's rock? You know, is it right that a guitar magazine should say that Kurt Cobain is a metal guitarist? That's a good thing if it promotes discussion and gets people talking.
Well, I would agree that, you know, including like a Kurt Cobain or as you said, a Neil Young and a metal guitarist list is ridiculous because when you say Kurt Cobain, you know, everybody thinks grunge. They don't think metal. When when you think of Neil Young, you think classic rock. You think, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. You know, you don't think metal. But if you say, you know, Eddie Van Halen, since we're on the subject, or say a George Lynch, you know, or Yngwie Malmsteen, you think, you know, metal guitarist, flashy metal guitarist.
I mean, listen to the music. Okay, those guys play shreds that you get in metal music, but the music, the songs that they are playing in and the bands that they're playing in, they're soft as dishwater, right? Dokken, for God's sake, you know, Yngwie Malmsteen's songs, and everyone admits this, right? The songs suck. They're not heavy. They're not intense. They're just rock music, no matter how godly his playing is over the top. Absolutely no disagreements there. But these guys don't play in metal acts. Now, I was going to put Al Pitrelli in, right? Now, Al Pitrelli, come on, he's a god of the guitar. Everyone knows that. And I thought, okay, he was in Megadeth. Surely that qualifies him for inclusion. And I thought, well, yes, he was, but for only a couple of years of his career. And then I thought, well, by that point, by those criteria, should I then include Marty Friedman? And I thought, well, you know what? Because he's best known, no matter what else he's done, he's best known for being in Megadeth, I'm going to include him. So you know what? There was a million different things I had to think about when I put this together, and I really, really enjoyed doing it. Your question was it hard to do? It wasn't. It was awesome. I could have done a list of 500 if I'd had the time and the space in the book, you know. And maybe one day I'll expand it someday to do that. But you know, it just threw up all these things. What's rock? What's metal? You know. And I spent a year thinking about it. It was great. I used to drive around thinking to myself, well, you know, what about Yngwie? Come on, let's give Yngwie a chance. You know, I mean, his talent is insane. It's out of this world. Can we not include him in the metal thing? You know, 20 years ago, in the mid-'80s, late 80s, people would definitely have called him a metal band. As you were saying, Dokken, you know, they were considered a metal band. But when you look at it now, you know, you look at the Gates, you look at Cannibal Corpse, you look at Metallica, you look at Slayer, does that stuff stand up? Does Dokken stand up next to it? Not to me, yeah. So that's why he didn't go in. And it's absolutely not a judgment on those guys' guitar skills, which are utterly godly, yeah.
Sure. Well,
what else
there's well, let's see. How about Gus G? Where's he?
Who, sorry? Gus
G from Firewind and Night Rage?
Yeah. I know. No, I know. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Amazing guitarist. And in fact, is he not in my... I don't think I even put him in the appendix. Great guitarist. He was one of many, many guitarists who are just unbelievable. But to squeeze all those guys into the top 100, I needed some more sort of pioneering stuff. You know, I've heard Firewind. Okay, it's great power metal if that's your cup of tea. Just didn't make the final cut. That's all.
Sure. Now the ones that surprised me, Joel, and maybe it's because I'm a little closer to these guys. I actually know them personally. But when I'm reading the list, I'm seeing two guys from Avenged Sevenfold. I have to wonder how neither of the guys from Chimera made it.
Oh yeah, I didn't really see that. I think Avenged Sevenfold. The music's awful. It's for children, but those guys. I've analysed their playing and I've looked at what they can do, and they are up there with the world's greatest shredders. There's no doubt about that. All right. Now Chimera, I've got their stuff. I've listened to it. It doesn't blow my mind particularly in technical terms. Although, you know, God, those guys are 50 times better than I'm going to be. Again, it's quite hard to say really. I looked at what all the guys have done technically. I went down and sat through several of their solos, analysed their stuff. It just didn't kind of feel, well, these guys aren't doing anything new. What are they doing that's special? What are they doing that's different? Amazing technicians that they are. There's an awful lot of very, very good, respectable guitarists who are just not the top, the best 100 in the world, and that's all I can say. And I really don't mean to be offensive to any of these guys, because of course they're all awesome. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Well, another question I have about your list, man, is does Tony Iommi make this list almost as a respect thing? Because I mean, again, trying to delineate between metal and hard rock. I mean, I don't think many people are looking at Black Sabbath as metal today. By today's
disagree. I think certainly in England it's agreed that heavy metal started in 1970, right? I mean, that's sure. Clearly a point of view which really divides people, right? Now, I don't look at Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple as heavy metal bands. I just don't, all right? A lot of people in this industry say, okay, Black Sabbath, that's the first heavy metal album, that's heavy metal's year zero, all right? Now, I know that over the decades, Sabbath's catalogue and Iommi's own work has strayed into the hard rock field. Absolutely, I know that. I love that stuff. He's not in there as a gesture of respect, although, of course, I do massively respect him. He's in there because he did it for the first time. He's a pioneer, and I said before that the criteria I selected people using was their technical ability and whether they've had pioneering ideas and how influential they've been. And there is no more influential person than Tony Iommi in this field. But you know what? He's an amazing guitarist, but he's not the number one guitarist in the world by any means yet. There's all this technical stuff he can't do. I interviewed him just a few months ago and said, by the way, when you look at, the super special new guys like the Triviums and the Avenged Sevenfolds, whatever you may think of their music, do you not feel that you need to step up your game a little bit technically and start mastering a few sweeps and a few other tricks like hybrid picking and economy picking? And he said, look, I just can't do that stuff, and it doesn't bother me. I'll never be able to learn that stuff at my age, and I don't mind. Which is why his playing is tasteful, but it's not incredibly technical. So he's not number one for that reason. But you cannot get away from the fact that heavy metal riffs tuned down with lyrics about Satan started with Tony Iommi. That's why he's in there.
Well, Joel, I noticed that you put a Jeff Waters from Annihilator high on the list. We've had Jeff on the show.
Yeah.
And he was a very cool guest. We enjoyed having him on the show. But seriously, does he rank near the top?
Oh, very much so. All right, if you sit down and listen to his stuff, he is an absolute master of every shred trick in the book. All right, and he's been doing it for years. I had a slight agenda in some ways. A lot of the guys are underrated. All right, anybody in the street who knows nothing about heavy metal can probably list 3 or 4 great metal guitarists. But only people who are really, really in the know and have sat down and listened would nominate Jeff and a few other players like Trey Azagtov from Morbid Angel, for example, who is an insanely good guitarist. But people tend not to give their stuff much recognition. Now, because Annihilator were never hugely commercially successful, they have cult appeal, not wide commercial appeal. People have never really listened to Jeff Waters, his playing, in as much as they would have listened to James Hetfield's playing and Kerry King's playing and Tony Iommi's playing. So I wanted to illustrate that fact. But I didn't just think, I'm going to put him really high on the list just to be controversial. I sat down and I listened to his stuff, and the guy is an absolute genius, yeah. A good example is, which I think I quoted in the book, is the Roadrunner United DVD, not the new one, the album, but the recording, not the new one, the concert, but the recording of the album that came out a few years ago. And you can see Rob Flynn and Machine Head getting a little guitar lesson from Jeff, and the level of technicality, the accuracy of the picking, the mastery of a wide range of techniques that Jeff displays, and all this is from a technical background. A breathtaking, okay? Sit down and watch that video or just dial up YouTube and look at Jeff. And that's why he's in there, and that's why he's so high, because there is an absolutely arguable position to be taken. But he's one of the top 5 players in the world.
Sure.
Hell yeah.
Well, Joel, I got to commend you on the fact that you could actually sit down and, come up with a list of 100 guitarists and rank them, to your, to whatever standard you put on it. And, the book, of course, is called The 100 Greatest Metal Guitarists, not, what would you think about writing a book? Not that you need to repeat yourself again, but How about the 100 Greatest Electric Guitarists?
I'd love to do that book. And I can tell you now that Jimi Hendrix would probably win it.
Yeah?
But, yeah, of course. I mean, how cool would that be, you know? It would cause endless controversy. I think my internet connection would probably break from all the hate mail that I got coming down the line. You know, the last time I was talking to you guys, I was talking about this book I did on Slayer called The Bloody Reign of Slayer, and the volume of emails that I got, many of which are in the guest book on my website, was insane, far more than I expected. The majority were good. A couple of them were saying, "You suck. You know, you're going to die, British limey green-toothed fool, when I catch up with you." But the guitar one, I think, is going to be even more, is going to generate even more feedback in that sense, which I welcome. You know, I want people to start thinking about it, and I want people to think about metal guitar, because I think it's an important skill and an art form that needs to be preserved. And I would hope that this book does something about that. You know, it does something to celebrate these guys in their history. I would like people to look back, pick up this book or some digital version of it in 50 years. Or 60 years when I'm long gone, and think, you know, that this was a moment in history, and these guys were incredible musicians, you know, and I would hope that this celebrates them in a way that they deserve. Hey.
Yet, strangely enough, Lemmy will still be out there playing when that time comes.
Lemmy, you know what? Lemmy's a pretty good guitarist, actually. I've seen him play some acoustic numbers from time to time. I don't think he would regard himself as a shredder. I put Fast Eddie Clarke in there as well. He's in the upper reaches somewhere.
Sure. Well, Joel, one question that I had about the list, and this is not really, I agree with both of these guys being on the list, but I don't agree with the order of these guys being on the list, is obviously the two guys from Slayer. I just wonder, is Kerry King rated higher than Jeff Hanneman because of something that I don't see technically, or is it just because Kerry is so much more, you know, out front as the image of Slayer than
no, I know what you mean. I'll tell you what it is that Kerry is a little bit more extrovert, technically. I don't think he has many more tricks than Jeff has. Jeff has more of a punk background, right?
Right.
And he regards himself, I don't, he regards himself as way inferior to Kerry. And I think how that may have manifested itself is that he is a little less showy off with some of his tricks that he does. He also has a pretty strange picking style, and I've asked him about this. If you look at him live, he hits the strings with his pick at a really weird angle, and Jeff told me that Kerry's always laughing at me about it. And you know, you can't deny that he's not an amazing fucking guitarist. I mean, he really is, you know. But Kerry, I think, has a little bit more confidence, a little bit more swagger in his playing, and just a touch more picking precision, I think. So no, none of these guys are in there because of their public profile. Otherwise, Jeff Waters wouldn't have been in the top 5, right?
Sure.
They're only in there for the two criteria that I said before: how pioneering, the inventive they've been, influential, and their technical skills. You know, I think there's a good solid reason why Kerry is a couple of steps ahead of Jeff there.
Sure. Do you think that maybe part of, and maybe this is just my own head, but when I look at the list, I almost question some of the guys where they're listed. Like Kerry King is a prime example. I clearly understand that he's one of the greats of all time. That being said, he's on the downswing of his career, where he's not playing as precise as he used to be, and his attempts to, you know, redefine Slayer are pretty much done, to where now it's you know, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying that you know, Christ Illusion as an example was just, you know, standard Slayer. It wasn't great, it wasn't brilliant, it wasn't anything new for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that, but go on.
Well, I just wonder if maybe I'm looking at the list and saying, well, you know, Kerry King was great in 1985, 6, 4, you know, maybe not as much today. And I see that on a lot of the list. Yeah,
I'm not sure how relevant that is, though. You know, the guys have still got their chops, you know. They've gone up and down over the years. James Hetfield played, I think, really badly in the 90s. No, I don't know. I disagree with a few things you said there about Kerry. He's not playing less precisely now than he did. He's playing more precisely, man. You listen to the right-hand picking precision on Christ Illusion, any of those songs. I'm not saying that Christ Illusion is a great album. I think it's, like you, I think it's kind of an average Slayer album. But you listen to the stuff on there, and then you compare it to Hell Awaits and even Rain in Blood, which is clearly the far superior album. But you listen to those picking chops, they're way ahead, man. They're way more advanced. He's become a demon on the guitar. So that's how I see it, you know. But I totally accept and understand your point, you know. And this is what I like about it. Everyone's going to have a different point of view.
Sure. And
who's your number one then?
What's that?
What would your number one be?
For me personally, it would have been Dimebag. I just the guy. I mean, the fact that he didn't know music theory at all, and he just played. Yeah. And you know, I saw Pantera probably 30 sometimes, and to see this guy play, and every time I ever saw him play, he played 100% on emotion, almost 0% on repetition, and that's something you just don't see, you know, with almost any player that I've ever seen. Just that always plays.
The guy's ideas were just insane. Yeah, he came up with something new. He made guitar solos always sound fresh. That was what I loved about Dimebag. There's a couple of little technical chops that other people do better. That's why he's not number one. But I think it'll be no surprise to anyone if I say that he's in the top 10, certainly. I interviewed him a few months before he died, and we talked for a guitar magazine, and we talked about his chops. And he knew an awful lot, actually, more than people think. And, you know, I respected him massively for all the melodic stuff that he did. Now, it may come as some surprise to people that Zakk Wylde, his equivalent and contemporary in many ways, is slightly above him in the list. And I thought that would be controversial, but it's basically down to Zack's alternate picking as opposed to Dimebag's. Did a lot of legato, hammer-on sort of stuff. And that, I think, gives him the slight edge. And I'm sure Zakk would disagree, actually, but that'll be something that may get a few tongues wagging, I'll tell you.
Well, sure. The interesting thing, too, with Zack's another one that I think is not playing as well as he used to play. And you know, I'm very good friends with Zakk personally. But that being said, I just think that, you know, he got from, I guess from Mafia on out, he's kind of regurgitating what he's doing in Black Label versus continually challenging himself. A lot of it is sounding very similar from record to record.
Yeah, oh no, I agree, but then we're talking about songwriting now, right? We're not talking about technical chops. But I would agree.
Well, no, I'm talking about his chops, too. His chops are sounding very, you know, he's using similar riffs and similar, similar solos now. He's not challenging himself like he used to in the early days, and especially in the early days of Ozzy, where he was just going out of his way.
You're talking about writing. You're talking about writing solos and riffs that aren't repetitive and are challenging. My point is that should he choose to execute new stuff, which is new, he would have the same old chops that he always had. I'm talking about his technical ability, you know.
Right, sure. And one last one that made your list, and I have to say, for me personally, as a humongous fan of this band, I never saw this one coming. I don't know that he necessarily rates in the top 100 guys, but I still think that it was cool that you thought of this guy. And that's Jim Martin of Faith No More, man.
Oh, Jim, a god among men, right?
Right.
Now look, this is a difficult one to defend. I know. All right. Faith No More. I don't even classify them as a heavy metal band. They're a rock band who played everything, including some fucking amazing heavy metal, right? Now, when Jim did that stuff, he just blew me away, okay? And the volume that he had, one guitar in that band, and he dominated it, right? When it came to those riff-heavy songs like Surprise You're Dead. But the thing about Jim is that you just cannot look at 1980s and 1990s guitar, heavy metal guitar, without thinking of Jim Martin partly because of his massive image and his presence and all the kind of crazy stuff that he did, but also just because when he played, he made Faith No More metal. He made them into a metal band. They had no choice. They had to play metal. And it was his presence in the band that got me, and the fact that he gave them a charisma and a massive personality that was all his own. And there's something about, I could talk about them all day, man. I really, really could. And funnily enough, I'll give you a little taster. I'm trying to get an interview with him right now for another book that I'm doing about a childhood friend of his, and you can figure that out off the air. But he's in there, and I'm cool. I'm glad that you are happy with him being in there, because a lot of people who love Faith No More as insanely as I do are going to be a little bit surprised by his inclusion.
It was definitely surprising, and I think the telltale sign with Faith No More is the minute he left and Trace Bruins, jumped over from Mr. Bungle, they just became an odd band. They just weren't.
Yeah, it was so weird how many people switched off. So weird. I really hope this reunion thing comes off.
Yeah, me too.
Apparently the chances are good.
All right, Joel. Well, the new book, again, is called The 100 Greatest Metal Guitarists. And, Joel, where can people find the book, and where can they find you?
The book is available on American Amazon and UK Amazon and the various other international Amazons. It will be distributed in the US widely by the Hal Leonard Corporation, a massive distributor of books. You'll get it in your local bookstore, right? But if you can't, just go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any of those good websites. And my web address is www.joelmciver.co.uk. That's JOELMCIVER. And I will be there. I will be answering any emails that people send me, even if you email me and say, you limey bastard, I'm going to kill you, then at least I'll respond and say thank you, have a nice day, and I'll think about your comment. On the other hand, you might want to email me and say, you know what, I thought putting Kirk Hammett in and at number whatever it was about a good idea. I don't know. Bring it all on. I welcome all feedback. Everyone has an opinion. I like them all.
Sure, but you get paid for yours.
Well, yeah, I do.
You
but
sell out.
When I'm 65 years old, people are going to be coming up to me and saying, you said this in 2009, and so I have to stand by what I say. Even this interview, I'll listen back to it probably and think, you know what, I really talked about Jim Martin too much there.
Sure. Well, when you write your new book, the top 100 most influential metal radio programs, I'll be glad to accept that number one slot, as we should be.
Yes, no, absolutely. I'll get back to you on that one. Maybe if I do a top 500.
Sure.
you might get...
All right, Joel. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you here on the Classic Metal Show. Go pick up Joel's newest book, The 100 Greatest Metal Guitarists. Read it and weep, and send Joel a hateful email.
Yeah, and I'll forward it to you guys, and we can all laugh about it.
Right.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love being on your show. You guys really keep the metal flag flying. You do a great job.
Excellent, Joel. Well, Joel, if you'd like, since you picked 100 metal guitarists, I'm sure that you could probably pick a song from, something that any one of these guys participated in. You got a band or a song you'd like us to play?
Yeah, I'd like you to play Trapped Under Ice by Metallica, and the reason for that song is because it demonstrates just how breathtakingly awe-inspiringly good Hetfield's rhythm chops were back in '84, when, let us remember, he was a mere 21 years old, right? Kirk's soloing is just insane, all right? And this has nothing to do with my views of current Metallica and how average their recent music has been. It's just a little celebration of how, back then, they absolutely ruled the world of heavy metal guitar, and deservedly so. So listen to that song, play it very loudly, and headbang.
All right, well, here it is. This is Metallica with Trapped Under Ice exclusively here
on your Classic Metal Show.
Thanks for checking out the best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com.
The Classic Metal Show.